into Gabby Williams, got hit in the forehead, and it caused 2 black eyes. And you can still see some of the remnants of them, and now she's sporting the bloody lip. She is as tough as they come.
Lexie Hull stepped into the matchup against the Chicago Sky already showing signs of battle, sporting 2 black eyes, and by the time she walked off the court, she had added a busted lip to the list. Yet none of that stopped her from delivering one of the grittiest performances of her entire career. What made the night even more memorable wasn't just her toughness on the floor, but what she revealed in her comments afterward, words that instantly became the center of conversation among fans. The way Indiana dismantled Chicago, despite all the adversity and missing pieces, proved that the Fever aren't merely scraping by to sneak into the postseason. Instead, they are actively reshaping who they are as a franchise right before our eyes. And as impressive as the win itself was, the Real spark came from Hull's post-game message, a line that could very well define Indiana's playoff run. "That's a W, made it out. All you got to do is keep making it out," she declared, a statement that perfectly captured the Fever's mentality. The bigger question hanging over the Fever, however, wasn't about toughness or resilience, it was about survival. How do you continue winning games when your franchise superstar is sidelined and half your rotation is nursing injuries? That was the reality Indiana faced the moment Caitlin Clark announced she would not be returning this season. Just days before the regular season came to a close, Clark went public with the news herself, stating, "I had hoped to share a better update, but I will not be returning to play this season." For weeks, fans had clung to the slim hope of her return, but when that announcement hit, it felt like a balloon deflating. The entire playoff chase had to be recalibrated overnight. Clark's message made it clear how much effort she had poured into the comeback. She explained that she had spent countless hours in the gym with the single goal of getting back on the floor, but her stubborn groin injury never healed the way she and the team hoped. She admitted that disappointed isn't a big enough word to describe how she felt, but she also thanked fans for their unwavering support. Despite the frustration, Clark pointed out the silver lining, the joy and perspective the Fever fan base continued to give her. She ended her statement by praising the team for growing stronger through hardship and shifting her focus towards seeing them finish strong and clinch a playoff spot. Unfortunately for Indiana, Clark wasn't the only player whose season was cut short. Injuries piled up relentlessly, making the Fever look snake-bitten. Sophie Cunningham had already been ruled out for the season. Sydney Colson went down with a torn ACL. Chloe Bibby's name couldn't seem to come off the injury report as she battled persistent knee trouble, and Ari McDonald suffered a broken foot that ended her year as well. When you add up those losses, that's essentially an entire rotation stripped away. Imagine trying to make a playoff push without your superstar scorer, your physical enforcer, your veteran leader, your steady backup point guard, and one of your key forwards all at once. Instead of having the luxury of building chemistry and consistent lineups, the Fever coaching staff was forced to shuffle rotations like a deck of cards every single game, never able to settle into stability. Head coach Stephanie White didn't mask her frustration when discussing the situation. She admitted that it was tough to see Clark grind through so much work, only for time to run out. "It's frustrating, number one, just all the injuries that she's had," White said. She explained that Clark had done everything possible to put herself in position to return, but ultimately there wasn't enough time left in the calendar to get her fully healthy. White emphasized that Clark's long-term well-being mattered more than pushing her body at the end of a grueling season. "We just ran out of time to do it in a safe way," she stated, underscoring that the bigger picture, Clark's future, took precedence over a short-term playoff chase. General Manager Amber Cox echoed the same sentiment, driving home that Indiana's responsibility was to protect Clark's career, not gamble it away on a rushed return. Still, the decision gutted the Fever's roster depth. Without Clark and McDonald's ability to create plays, without Cunningham's grit, Colson's leadership, and Bibby's floor spacing, the Fever were left with no margin for error. Every trip down the floor carried more weight. Every substitution became a high-stakes decision. Yet despite her absence on the court, Clark didn't fade into the background. She stayed fully engaged on the sidelines, cheering after baskets, high-fiving teammates, and barking out encouragement during timeouts. Even when she sat on the bench, cameras captured her intensity, eyes locked on the game, voice projecting into the huddle. For Fever fans, her presence still felt electric, even though her jersey never touched the hardwood. The playoff picture at the time was razor-thin. Indiana entered the week clinging to the 8th and final postseason spot, barely holding off the Los Angeles Sparks. One slip could have sent them tumbling out altogether. Survival became the only theme. Could this shorthanded roster keep itself afloat long enough to secure another playoff berth? Could they adapt without losing belief in themselves? The challenge felt less like drawing up plays on a whiteboard and more like a pure test of resolve. By the time the build-up to the Chicago matchup rolled around, the pressure had reached a boiling point. Nothing about it was glamorous. It wasn't about highlight plays or style points. It was about grit, execution, and proving that Indiana had the will to outlast. That furnace of pressure became the very fire that lit Indiana's performance against the Sky. On the surface, a 97-77 final score looks like a straightforward 20-point win. But if you peel back the layers, it told a much bigger story. This wasn't just another victory, it was the 5th straight time Indiana had beaten Chicago this season. Not only that, but they did it by an average margin of 24 points per game. That level of dominance wasn't random, it was systematic control, bordering on humiliation for the Sky. It highlighted just how far apart the two franchises were at this moment. And yet, despite owning Chicago all year, Indiana still entered the game with zero comfort in the standings. Sitting in 8th, only a single game ahead of Los Angeles, every win mattered. One loss in that moment could have pushed them into dangerous territory. Instead, Indiana flipped the script, turning that razor-thin margin into fuel and delivering their most commanding win at the exact time they needed it most. Kelsey Mitchell once again set the tone, like she has all season. She poured in 20 points while also dishing out 8 assists, striking the perfect balance between being a scorer and a facilitator. Mitchell wasn't just out there hunting her own shots, she orchestrated the offense, knowing exactly when to look for her teammates and when to take over herself. Right behind her was Natasha Howard, who anchored the Fever on both ends. Howard scored 18 points, grabbed 7 boards, and swiped 4 steals, making her presence felt everywhere. She gave Indiana inside scoring when they needed it and then turned around and disrupted Chicago's offense with relentless defense.